We're back and we're going to start on that low poly rock to add to our low poly scene. Alright, now that we're back in Blender, what we want to first do is go into display render view so we can get an idea of these textures and our lighting. And what I want to do is I want to add a UV sphere, and I want to hit Shift A to add that mesh, and we'll go down to UV sphere, and I want to hit GZ. Remember, G is for grab, and if I hit the Z right after, I'm telling Blender to constrict the movement to the Z axis. So I'm moving it up, and what I want to do is I want to hit GY and move it over to the left here, and I want to hit the period key on the numpad to zoom in and focus on the object that we have selected. I want to hit tab. I want to grab the top vertex. Let's make sure we have the proportional editing on here. Remember, if this is highlighted, it lets us know that the proportional editing is on. If it's not on, remember, hit the O key on the keyboard and it will turn it on and off. Once we do, hit G, and you'll notice the circle again, letting us know how much of the fall off of the proportional editing is affecting the mesh. And I want to kind of scroll in on the scroll wheel on your mouse and pull it down. I also want to hit Z to let Blender know to constrict that movement on the Z axis. Move that down. I'll scroll out and increase the fall off here. Kind of get about like that, and I want to kind of rotate around, and I want to get a good look at it. And what I want to do is I want to grab this bottom vertex, and I want to hit GZ. I want to scroll in some and scroll out some as I move it up. Kind of get that as flat surface. Now that looks like a nice little stepping stone, almost too perfect. So what I want to do is I want to deform the mesh some more. I want to grab one of these vertices on the side, and I want to hit GY, and with that proportional editing, scroll in to decrease the amount of fall off on that. Pull out, rotate around, hit G for grab and not constrain it to any axis, and just kind of move it, increase the fall off, kind of shape this stone a little bit. We can also come in on the top. Let's grab here at the back about right there. G. I want to hit Shift Z to let Blender know that I want to move it on the X and Y axis, and I don't want to move it on the Z axis. Once we move it, we can start shaping that. G, Shift Z. Start shaping this stone a little bit. Grab this one. G, Shift Z. Move that out some. Now we have a neat little looking stone. Now I want to hit tab, and as you notice, it's got them highly detailed polys there, and we can right click and hit shade smooth to, if you want to smooth that out, but I'd rather have the poly look. And what I want to do now is I want to introduce the modifiers. And what the modifiers is, it transforms the mesh in a non-destructive way. This will make modeling way easier, especially when you want to do things that involve a lot of heavy lifting. The modifiers speed the process up. So what you want to do is go over here, the same place you will go to get your materials tab. You want to come up to this little wrench, click it, and you'll notice that you are in the modifiers. Right here, hit the drop down arrow, come over to the generate column, come down to decimate. And what decimate does, it will remove vertices, edges, and lines from the mesh. To do that, you need to hit the middle selection, unsubdivide. Right here, you notice iterations. That's asking you how many times do you want to unsubdivide the mesh. Right now it's set at 0. If you hit the arrow going to the right, it will change it to 1, and you notice that the mesh has transformed. Now if you hit it again, it'll go to 2. 2 is about what I want to leave it at. I kind of like the way that looks. Before we go any further and apply this, if I go back into edit mode, you notice that the vertices that were originally there are still there. If I go back in object mode, I hit this down arrow right here and I hit apply. This will apply that modifier. That will apply the modifier. Now we can go back into edit mode, and you can see that it's removed some of the vertices. Now say you don't like that, you can also hit A to select all, right click and hit subdivide, and this pop-up menu in your bottom left-hand corner will pop up. It may not always be like this. Let me hit this and collapse the window. Most of the time it'll be like this, so you'll have to look at it. Now if you click anything else, that will disappear, so make sure once you go to subdivide, don't click anywhere or move anything on the mesh. You look for this window, that way you can adjust the settings on it. And I can add more vertices and subtract vertices. I don't particularly want to do that, so I'm going to hit Control Z to undo the subdivide and keep it there. Less vertices, less work on your GPU. Hit Tab, and I'm going to scroll out some. Whoop, too far. Hit Shift A, add another mesh, a UV sphere. GZ, GY, Tab. I'm going to hit the period key on that numpad, and I'm going to shift and click in on the scroll wheel and pan up some. Grab that top vertex, rotate, zoom out a little bit, shift, click in on the scroll wheel and pan down. Hit GZ with that proportional editing on and pull that top vertex down the same way I did with the other one. Now I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to make this one more flat, and I'm going to come to this bottom vertex, GZ, pull it up, make it more rounded. And the reason I want to do that is I want to hit Tab, rotate on the X-axis, and I want to rotate this in 180 degrees so the bottom is at the top. And to do that, if I've already told Blender that I want to rotate and then told it to do it on the X-axis, all I have to do is come over to the numpad, hit 180, enter, and it'll rotate that object in 180 degrees. You can tell Blender what degree you want to rotate objects. You can also do this with scaling and the grab tool, but we'll get into that later. I can also do it in the negative direction. So I can hit rotate, X-axis, negative 180, and you notice it puts it right back to the position that it was originally in. Now let's hit Control Z and undo that because I want the rounded top there. Now I'm going to go back into Tab, and I'm going to GZ, kind of shape this a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and hit 7 to go into top view, and what I want to do is I want to grab different vertices, Shift Z to let Blender know move it on the X and Y axis but not the Z, and I'm going to do the same thing and move vertices around like I did to the other mesh. Now on this one, I want to hit GZ and pull it down. I want to flatten that out like that, so it kind of looks a little bit different, like it's got a slope on it. Also may do it on this side, GZ. Not quite as much. There we go. Give that a little bit more shape. Now I'm going to tab, and I'm going to add the Decimate Modifier to that as well. Remember, come over to your Properties panel here on your right, go to the Modifier tab where your wrench is, add modifier, over to the Generate column, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is the Decimate tool. Click on the Decimate, hit the Unsubdivide selection, crank that up to 2 iterations, hit the drop down arrow, apply, and that is what I'm looking for. Now you can do more iterations or less, or you ain't got to do none at all. I just want to introduce the Decimate modifier and where the modifiers are. Later on we'll get more into those. I like this kind of style. I like the low poly look, so that's what we're going with. Now what I want to do is I want to hit 3, and I want to pan, 3, shift, pan down, and I want to hit G, Z, and pull this down here so it's sitting on the ground with the tree. And I'm going to do the same thing with this other rock, G, Z. Pull that down, right there. Also, I want to move these rocks over into another position. I'm going to hit 7, And if you notice, it's going to be hard to move these rocks around the tree stump. So what I want to do is I want to grab the leaf object and I'm going to hit the H key to hide that object so I have more visibility. I'm going to grab this, GY, move it on the Y axis here, grab on the X axis, and then rotate on the Z axis just a bit, like this. Actually, I'm going to move this on the other side, kind of like it like that. I'm going to rotate Z just a little bit more. Now I'm going to grab Y, move this one on the other side, rotate Z a little bit. And there we go. We got us some stones. Actually, I want to move this one back just a bit like that. Now this one, I want to hit Shift D, grab Y, pull it out, GX, pull it forward, and actually pull it back over this way. And I want to hit Scale, scale that down, hit the 3 to go into side view, pan over, GZ to bring that down to the ground. And I want to hit Shift D, GY, move that one over, Shift D to duplicate, GY to move it over. And I have 3 of those. Now what I want to do is I want to hit GX, and I kind of want to position this one here. GX, position this one here. GX, position this one here. Grab Y, pull it probably here. And I want to grab this one, and I'm going to hit Shift D, GX, scale it down, hit 3, zoom in just a bit, and I'm going to hit GY to move it over, hit 7 to go in the top view, scroll out and hit GX, and I'm going to kind of put it on top of these rocks. Now hit 3, zoom in, and GZ. Now you notice the way this rock's shaped. I'm going to have to rotate it, so I'm going to hit rotate X, rotate that on the X axis. GY, move that over, rotate X, GZ. And now we have a small pile of rocks. Actually, I'm going to move this one GY just a little bit closer, and there we go. Now I want to hit Alt and the H to bring those leaves back, hit 0 to go see what the camera sees, and that is what we are finished with. That was a pretty short, simple tutorial on making low poly rocks. It was pretty straightforward. We introduced the Decimate tool. Now remember, the only thing we got to do is hit F12 for a render and then save that picture if you want to save it for later. The next video, I'm going to go over adding the materials to the rock. I'm going to do something a little bit different with nodes, and I may remove this background. So if this video helped you guys out, please give me a like and a subscribe, and if you don't mind, leave me a couple comments. Thank you.